Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Cinefile, the show celebrating cinema one film at a time. Each week, my co-host Jake Biller and I break down a film, discussing anything from scenes you missed to mise en scène. Today, we discover greatness while watching 2000's The Replacements. This is the second week of our series, Football in the Fall. Look at that lovely graphic that was made by the lovely Jake Biller. Jake, this was your pick this week, and good pick. Because last week,
a lovely pick, some might say.
Yes, because last week it was my pick and I failed epically. But
You
good
fumbled
Lord,
the ball, but we came back in the second quarter.
This movie kicks ass.
I enjoy this. It's surprising the amount of people that haven't seen it. I think it just kind of falls, kind of right in that like time period when it's just like it's a little too early for like our generation to have seen it when it came out, obviously.
Right.
Because like, for instance, my dad is the one who introduced me to this film. Shocking. My dad.
Yeah, I was like, big shocker. This should be sponsored by your dad. This whole Football in the Fall.
My 35-year football coach dad. That was a weird turn of phrase. My dad coached football for 35 years. Anyways. But no, I love this movie. I call it one of the most underrated football movies just because people I talk to and I recommend it to haven't seen it, but once they watch it, a lot of them are like, yeah, this is epic because it's funny, it's fun, it's an underdog story, which just people love in general. But no, this is one of my favorite football movies, hence why I picked it for this series.
Yeah, I don't even think I'd heard of it, but it has Keanu Reeves. I am a unabashed Keanu Reeves fan. It also has the extraordinary Gene Hackman. I think he only acted for 3 more years after this, because this was 2000. I think his last film was 2003.
Okay.
And I think I texted you that I'm pretty sure that Gene Hackman's character, or Gene Hackman in general, could coach, like he could give like a speech that would convince my body not to react badly to gluten. Like literally, he just is an absolute king. And this isn't his first sports underdog movie.
Cool, of course.
Yeah, everybody in the Hoosier state knows the movie Hoosiers, a basketball film, which we will probably discuss if we do a March Madness series, which we probably will. But this film, first off, it's very 2000.
Yes,
it is,
but in a good way.
Yeah. For the most part, yes.
I'm trying to remember.
We're not getting to Rosebud and Thorn yet.
I know.
It's like, yeah, very 2000.
Yeah, I was trying to remember because there's an episode of the pod. Now, what is this episode, like 33 or something?
Something like that.
Whoever thought we'd make it to 33 episodes after making it to 2 the first time around.
Yeah, if you folks don't know, there's a reason this is season 2. Is because we did have a season 1 that was like 2 episodes.
And then like most shows, season 1 is very forgettable. You can just go ahead and skip it.
Yeah. I mean, we do talk about Back to the Future.
Your favorite movie.
Yeah, it's the greatest film of all time.
Even though you say you don't have a favorite movie, that's your favorite movie.
No, I do say now, ever since that episode, I now say that Back to the Future is my favorite film of all time, because you literally told me, you're like, it is literally your favorite film. Stop saying you don't have a favorite film. Back to the Future is your favorite film. And I was like,
Cliff notes of that episode of the pod. Ben loved this movie so much that I'm like, you're so blind. This is your favorite movie.
Yes. And I also think that's where I discovered what cornichons were. Like the small little pickles. Yeah. If you looked, the first season, I edited the episodes and I would add graphics into it because I'm stupid. And there is a whole thing about, there's a whole thing about Ryan Deem, got our Indianapolis Colts gear on, who's the worst lineman of all time. in my opinion. Like if you were a Colts fan in like 2008, or maybe even earlier than that, you would see a false start, be like, okay, it's Ryan Deem, number 72, I want to say. Ryan Deem, false start, big shock. And then I also edited about Cornishons. Maybe it wasn't that episode, but we did a couple, and you're welcome to go and check those out. Those are right at the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
When we shot those. And now we're back, and we're 33 episodes in, and that was a really long rabbit trail for whatever you were going to say.
It was so long I can't remember where we were going with this. But hey, we made it here. We're talking about the replacements. It's incredible. What we're talking about. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. We're back. I got it back. I got my train of thought back. We said on an earlier episode of the pod, it was a few weeks ago, I just can't remember what movie it was, that we said this movie is so 2000s, but in a bad way. And this like is the opposite end of the spectrum, because like it's cheesy a little bit, like it like pushes the envelope on cheesy. I noticed that in this rewatch, but I was like, but I like it. It's nostalgic, and it reminded me. It made me think back of like when I first started watching pro football, right? When I first, the way the jerseys are, the helmets, the style of play, even the plays that they run. It was very like late 90s, early 2000s NFL football. And I was just like, this is what I remember watching as a kid. Now, growing up as a Bears fan, as you can see,
Bear Dan.
I don't have a ton of positive football memories besides the season that we lost the Super Bowl to the Colts.
Oh, to who?
To the Colts, yes. All right.
Yeah, I remember that. That was an elite game.
Yes.
And
which Devin Hester he ran back the opening kickoff, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that dude was a dog, man.
He was.
Yeah. But I mean, around this time, I have some memories of some early Colts football back in the height of the Manning Brady, matches, where I thought Gary Brackett was like an absolute unit, and Robert Mathis could not be beat, and Dallas Clark was the greatest tight end ever to play.
Dallas Clark, that's a name I haven't thought about in a while.
Yeah, Dallas Clark. And so, but yeah, you're absolutely right. This was a different era of football, because like half of the plays in this, everyone would have gotten ejected.
Oh yeah.
And obviously this plays for comedy, because you have one guy smoking. like this movie, for the folks at home that don't know the phrase "out of pocket," it essentially means like it didn't even need to be as ridiculous as it is. And this movie is very out of pocket. Like some of the things that happen are wild. But also the cast. If we're going to start with the cast, you have Gene Hackman, Keanu Reeves, you've got Reese Ifans, you've got Roy from The Office. I mean, you've got a ton of different great here.
Jon Favreau,
Jack Warden in his last.
Yeah, it's his last film before he dies.
Film. You have John Madden and Pat Summerall. You have Faison Love, who, okay, what is he in? He's like he's elite. Like, he's one of the two linebackers, and he's in, I forget what. I'm trying to find it, because he is like he's an Elf. He's the guy from Elf. He's the 10 a.m. Santa's coming. That guy. Yeah. That's Faison Love. And so I watched him and I was like, this guy's awesome. Keith David is in it, and his voice is so iconic. He does a lot of animated stuff. But essentially, this story, while not true, has some basis in reality. I can't remember if this was the 80s or the 90s, but there was one season where it was like a lockout season. And so they had, I think it was like a shorter season.
Yeah. It's It was 80. Oh shoot, it was 87, and I'm pretty sure that was the year that the Redskins won the Super Bowl, and they played with replacement players. I'm pretty sure it was 87. But anyways,
Yeah, I thought that's what I thought.
This is kind of loosely based on the just in like the concept, you know, a struggling Washington, or I guess you could say a promising,
that's just life. A struggling Washington team is just reality.
Promising Washington team. I don't know. A Washington team is on the brink of the playoffs, and then there's a strike, and the scab players basically get them to the playoffs. And in 87, I think it's 87.
Well,
It's close. It's somewhere in the 80s. I know that, but because that's like the only time the Redskins have ever been good. Well, now the Commanders.
All right, you know what would have been wild if they renamed them to the Washington Sentinels.
That would have been epic. Honestly,
I actually think that was one of the options.
I think it was
because they came out with a couple.
Yeah,
they had the Washington Commanders. They had, I think, the like Washington Generals or something like that. Like a bunch of political ones.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Sentinels was an option. And so it's loosely based in reality. You obviously have John Madden and Pat Summerall just like showing up.
Yeah.
And they were a huge force. They changed the way we watched football at home.
Oh, yeah.
John Madden is obviously from like the Madden games are based on John Madden, but his play-by-play commentary is legendary, and Pat Summerall as his equal in calling the plays.
Mm-hmm.
It just changed the way things were done. So it's really appropriate to have them in this and in a more comedic more comedic styling than usual. I mean, like, what does John Madden say? He says something about it's like, I love it when a fat guy scores.
Because then you get a fat guy touchdown and a fat guy celebration.
Yeah. And so the cast is kind of stacked. It is quite funny. Like I said, this movie's very out of pocket. Like it is some of the things that go on here. I mean, we start out by learning that one of the players is getting time away from jail to go and play.
Yeah.
And
that moment, I'm sorry, when they drop him off, it's so funny. There's so many funny moments in this movie. I'm going to say this moment is so funny a lot in this episode. Just bear with me. But the moment when they drop the guy off and the assistant, and he's just like, he's talking to the assistant coach and he's like, I like that watch. And he's like, oh, it's broken, only right twice a day. Let's go out there where people can hear me scream.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like you've got him, you've got I don't want to say like fat Manti Te'o, but that's what I texted you.
Me that.
I texted you as fat Manti
Te'o is Hawaiian, and this man is Japanese.
For the record, this was before it is stated as such in the film.
Yes, it was a real-time text.
Yes, it was a real-time text, kind of like we were both watching the Colts game today, and I was real-time texting, and I was behind, and so I was like, "Oh, it's pass interference," and then I like immediately texted, "Oh wait, no, it isn't," and then you're like, "This man's finally caught up." I mean, this you have him eating a bunch of eggs right before a game. But he was playing like Chubby Bunny, that game of marshmallows, but it was with eggs.
Yeah,
it's like that's the wrong white food to be stuffing in your mouth. And then you've got like I said, the guy from Elf who whips out a gun and shoots the quarterback's car after they're trying to bully Keanu Reeves. And I texted you originally, I was like, do they understand that this guy is John Wick? Like, John Wick as a football player. And obviously there's a little bit of romance in there. It's just, I really, really enjoyed this movie. This is a movie that I could even see myself picking up. on Blu-ray or something
Yeah.
like that, because I think any football fan would appreciate this.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's like, and it really, you don't need to like understand a lot about the game of football. I feel like some football movies you need to like, you need to know like football to understand. But this one, it's like if you've like watched an NFL game, you're gonna enjoy this movie. And
Yeah.
I think, to your point about Pat Summerall and John Madden in it, I feel like they were so like revered as broadcasters and analysts and color commentators, play by play, et cetera, et cetera. Because I felt like they're two of the figures that like helped like middle America understand the game of football. They were able to take what was happening on your TV screen and make you feel like you understood it. Like you walked away from a broadcast being like, oh, I know a little more about football because of this. And I think that they were able to do that in just like a fun and lighthearted and enjoyable and entertaining way. And that's just really like how I can sum up this movie. It's fun, it's light, it's entertaining, but also, to quote Gene Hackman, it has heart in it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say miles and miles of heart, but it does have some heart in it, and it has some touching moments.
Yeah. I think like looking at this film, I start to wonder what makes it so endearing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We see a lot of different underdog stories in a lot of different films having to do with a lot of different types of either sport or just just human stories, underdog, just human stories. And I think it doesn't take itself too seriously. And I think that endears the audience to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I started watching it, and at the very beginning, I'm like, okay, like it's funny, but it's like low key extra.
Yeah.
And very 2000s, and we'll talk about that. And so I was like, I don't know if I really like this. Like I like it, but I don't know if it's great. And you get these moments, and one of the moments that really sticks out to me is that they all sit down and talk about their fears.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a exercise that happens after the first game where they lose. And Gene Hackman's like, look, we're putting it all out on the field. Okay, what are your fears? And it's a bonding moment. But because we see this bonding moment, I think we kind of bond with the characters themselves.
Yeah.
And all these different personalities are able to mesh together because they all really respect each other.
Mm-hmm.
By the end, obviously at the beginning, they're like all having lunch, and it's like Chinese like pork ribs or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they go up to the one guy. What is his name?
Which guy? The Japanese guy?
Yeah.
It's his character's name is like Fumiko or something like that, which apparently is like
Jumbo. That's his
Yumbo?
nickname. Yumbo, Jumbo, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's Yumbo, but they call him Jumbo.
Stop.
No. No, look, I can't show you my screen, but I literally Googled the replacements movie cast. Okay. And it says Ace Yonamin or Ace Yonamin, and it says Jumbo under it. Now, granted, this is also the same thing that says John Madden and say Stesso. So and it also says that the boogeyman is Butler. I don't know.
What kind of knockoff great value Google are you using?
Google's whack, man.
Are you using Bing?
No, I'm using DuckDuckGo. Used exclusively by Mr. Daniel Eisenberg.
Oh.
Yeah, so maybe his name is Yumbo, maybe it's Jumbo. Okay. Anyway, they're like, how did you get so fat on these? And it's like I said, this movie, the kind of humor, even though I feel like it still kind of happens in locker rooms,
yeah,
I feel like you can't get away with it today.
Yeah,
but it's like they really start to come together, especially like they go to a party or they go to a bar together. Um, and so it's the coming together of a group of a bunch of different people, which happens all the time. It's very realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think us seeing that happen makes it all the more easy to root for them.
Yeah. And it's like it's they're a group of like really just kind of odds and ends cobbled together. And Gene Hackman has a line, I'm going to paraphrase it here, where they kind of go through like all the replacement players that they've recruited, and he's like, they all have a special skill set, or they all have a special purpose on this team. And every one of those players does, but like when they get them all together the first time, it's very like nobody knows like what to make of each other, because like so many of these people are like non-traditional football players. I mean, we have a sumo wrestler and two like bodyguards of a rapper on our offensive line. We have a guy who apparently played like the worst Sugar Bowl ever as your quarterback. Right. Which, fun fact, they keep talking about the 96 Sugar Bowl. There was no Sugar Bowl in 96. I looked it up. This is how invested I am in this movie. I looked it up. The Sugar Bowl in 95 is played on New Year's Eve. It's Virginia Tech versus Texas. And then the next Sugar Bowl is played January 2nd, 1997, Florida versus Florida State. So in the year, the calendar year 1996, there is no Sugar Bowl.
Interesting. So they can kind of get away with it, even though they're referring to the 96 season.
Yeah. I when I was reading up on it, they were like, they did that on purpose to, as a way to be like, make Shane more like anonymous. I guess in a way of like, not like when you watch this movie, you didn't think of who the quarterback in the 96 Sugar Bowl was. Because
that makes sense.
Yeah. So I thought that was a really specific and well thought out detail that really, like, I feel like this movie like didn't need, like, it didn't need to be that specific and like that planned out, but it was, which I appreciated. I appreciate the attention to detail there.
That is really interesting, because obviously none of the teams are real teams.
Yeah.
But man, they really feel real because Dallas lost. And Dallas.
How about them Cowboys?
When they lose, for the folks at home, we were recording this on September the 10th, in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. So the Giants have not played the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. And I cannot wait. I love Sunday Night Football, but I cannot wait to watch the Giants destroy the Cowboys. Because I hate the Cowboys. You can quote me on that. If you like the Cowboys, all sports are subjective, I guess. You can like the Cowboys, you're wrong. They suck. I mean, they haven't been good since Troy Aikman was, not even Tony Romo. Anyway, I really just don't like Jerry Jones. But
because
I feel like Cowboys fans also don't like Jerry Jones. But I just can't wait to watch them get beat tonight. You can call it here. I called it.
They better get beat. Daniel Jones is my fantasy quarterback.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a discussion for another time, because I don't know how many people are in your league, but I don't know why you pick Danny Dimes.
Took a quarterback late. No, he got stolen.
He got stolen. Well, I'll tell you, this has been really rambling so far.
Yes. So back on track. On track. Watching through this time, this seems like a movie that like doesn't care about like the cinematography or like the editing or like any of like the filmmaking techniques. But I really enjoyed the edit on this. I felt like there were some moments, like, it really likes to intercut scenes together.
Yes, it does.
It almost, like, bear with me here for a second. It almost gives me Empire Strikes Back vibe in the way that like we intercut. it's not on the grand scale of Empire Strikes Back, because you're constantly intercutting between our crew on the Falcon and Luke on Dagobah. Like that's like a majority of the movie. We're intercutting between there, but like it likes to intercut like two scenes together, and the action's happening at the same time, or like we're seeing the scenes unfold at the same time.
Okay.
I don't know. It's hard to explain it, and maybe I'm just like trying to love this movie too much. But...
Yes, I kind of understand what you're saying. There is one edit that stood out to me, and it is when Keanu Reeves goes into that bar.
That is my favorite moment of the movie. And it is so good.
It actually is pretty good. And he and Annabelle, are it's one of those where I just as an audience member would be like, look, get together. Okay. Literally, it is obvious that you both like each other. You have a stupid rule about dating quarterbacks, and just forget the rule. You obviously like each other. You have chemistry. Get together.
Yeah.
It's as easy as if the whole world would listen to my relationship advice. Okay. Nothing would change. No. There would be nothing different. But it's like, and so he's walking up slowly, and you start to hear the audio of the next game.
Yeah.
And it ends with like them starting to make out, and then it kind of fades away, and you hear something like, and Shane Falco scores.
Yeah.
And I was
it cuts from them making out to him running a touchdown in.
Right.
And I'm like, this is like, it's brilliant to me.
It's like on the nose, but not. It's noticeable, but it's like one of those things that it's noticeable, but you also have to think about it at the same time. Like you notice it's happening, but once you think about it and peel back the layers of it, you're like, wait, that's actually really interesting. It's like this duality. It's like he's kind of getting his groove back with women and getting his groove back with playing football.
Right. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, this movie on the surface doesn't seem to like care about those aspects of filmmaking. But I love the fact that when you like dig into it and like you really like pay attention to it and like are breaking things down, like, okay, like what are these shots looking like? What are, dialogue and editing, and the list goes on and on. The building blocks, I guess you say, the techniques of filmmaking, it really succeeds. And that just makes me love this movie all the more.
I think one of the things when we talk about comedies are, in my opinion, probably the hardest type of film to make, because comedy is really, really subjective. And especially when you are making a movie, you obviously get to know the characters, and you get to know the actors playing the characters really well. And so you may think certain things are funny that a general audience won't. But when you're doing comedy, a lot of times the edit isn't remembered.
Yeah.
Great comedies, their edit isn't remembered. Their cinematography style isn't always remembered. The color grading is not remembered. What is remembered is the laugh.
Yeah.
If you can get an audience to laugh, you've done your job. That's why they pay the ticket price to go in and watch. It's because they want to laugh. And so a lot of those things can be placed on, thrown out because they don't matter.
Yeah.
And this is that unique scenario where, because it's a comedy, but it's also not your like slapstick kind. Well, it is, but it's also like not. You could watch this movie and say it's really, really funny, but it's clearly not just trying to make jokes all the time.
Yeah.
It's finding like situational humor in a way.
It doesn't feel like a comedy routine.
Right. And so that makes it so interesting, because it follows those comedy rules of not really paying attention to the cinematography because it doesn't really matter. I mean, at the end of the movie, you hear a voiceover from Gene Hackman's character. We have not had a voiceover the entire movie. And then we hear this voiceover from his character. And when things like that happen in a drama, it takes you out of it because there's no establishment that there is this non-diegetic person, or that there is a narrator, or somebody kind of outside looking in. And actually, I think what they probably should have done is, if they wanted to follow these techniques, they should have all been back in the locker room, and you could start with the voiceover but cut to him talking to the players and actually saying these things to the players. So it would actually kind of go in line with the edit already, but because what he said was really, really good.
Yeah.
And I liked it, and it was a nice wrap up. But it just, that specifically kind of took me out when I was looking at the craft of it, because they just added in a voiceover, and that just didn't seem to mesh with the rest of the film.
No. I will say it did feel very sports movie to me, though. Like it felt,
very much so.
It felt like the end of a sport, very much the end of a sports movie, but like, you know, there's the trope of like, you see like all the like stills of like all the different players, and then like it's a scene, and then it like freeze frames, and then it's like so and so like went on to do blah 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 blah, and like so and so blah 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 blah, and then like talks about like the significance of the team and blah 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 blah. And I felt like it had that flavor to it, which is like a very sports movie kind of thing, but they did it in a different way with a voiceover, because this isn't based on a true story. So like doing that kind of, employing that trope wouldn't have felt it would have been wrong, and it would have felt more out of place, I think, than the narration.
Yeah, because you're absolutely right, because it almost was like, if this was a true story, you would have seen the freeze frame and the da 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 da, you know, and you had like and Shane Falco went on to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys and still sucked because the Cowboys suck. I won't get off that train. And he married Annabelle, and they had 2 kids, and both the kids were also Cowboys. You know, like just like some like random stuff.
Yeah.
Also, Glory Road.
Yeah, Glory Road does that.
Well, no. Earlier, you're talking about the movie that felt really 2000s. Glory Road.
Was it Glory Road? Okay.
That's the movie.
Okay.
So if we remember like 20 minutes ago when Jake first brought that up, you're like, I don't remember what movie. It took me 20 minutes, and now I remember.
There you go.
So,
well, Glory Road does do that picture thing. And
yeah, they also do that picture thing. Yeah.
I know we're going to talk about Remember the Titans in a couple weeks to wrap up this series, and I know that it does it in that movie too. There's a couple other sports movies.
I mean, I'm such a sucker for that.
Yeah, I'm
such a sucker for the true life kind of thing. The next thing I really wanted to talk about was the music choice.
Okay.
The score wasn't necessarily memorable in my opinion, but the soundtrack was very memorable. Yeah, because it is quite heavy. Like they use a lot of soundtrack in this.
Yes, and
it's very 2000s music. One of the things that, when we talk about movies that really date them, is their choice in music. But it's typically the late 90s. I'd honestly say 90s and 2000s up until about 2010. It's more common then, but the music choices they use that are like more modern day songs really stand out. Like if we are to look again at something like Back to the Future, right? That came out in 1985, and it has Huey Lewis in the news is The Power of Love, which was kind of debuted in that movie. Obviously, that is of the time period, but watching it today, it doesn't feel old because 80s music is kind of still like pretty popular. But 90s kind of grunge or early 2000s kind of pop is not nearly as popular anymore. Yeah. Even look at Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, right? The music in that film spans all decades, but it really kind of, once the year hits 2000, they don't really have anything up until like 2013. Yeah. So I know there is, I think, at least one song from the 90s in there. No Sleep Till Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah. But once you hit 2000, like that kind of music, for some reason, is just really old sounding. Like when I listen to it, I think I'm holding a Nokia phone,
Oh my
like,
gosh.
which is weird because I never had a Nokia phone. But my mom did. And it was one of the before the flip.
Yeah.
It was like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, you know what I'm talking
Oh yeah.
about? And the light up buttons. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, oh, she got the light up buttons. Oh
Oh my
man.
gosh.
Those aren't making a comeback.
No, as
Anytime.
they
Kind of like
shouldn't.
how frosted tips.
Ugh.
Yeah. So like if you were alive during the 2000s, I'm sorry. I guess. I don't know. like but so I thought the music choices here really dated the film.
Yeah. There are three songs though that are not of the time. They're older than the movie. That really stand out. And they are I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor.
And it works. That one works.
It's so good. And them doing the electric slide in jail to
Yeah.
I Will Survive.
Okay. What is with football movies and the players all doing a collective dance? This is the second week in a row where we've had players do a collective dance.
It's team bonding, man. I don't think I ever did a team dance with my teammates when I played football, but
If you count show choir as a sport, then that's all I did was team
uh,
dance.
but no, when they all did the electric slide to I Will Survive in jail, that is such a
That's a
memorable
great scene.
moment. I
That's a
love
great
that.
scene.
And the fact that like it's Clifford Franklin that's like, first I was afraid, I was petrified.
Petrified.
um when just like 5 minutes before they were all hating on that song, but then they all get behind it. So there's that one. Then there's the scene in the bar when Shane and Annabelle make out. There it's I'll Be Watching You by the Police. Incredible song. And then oh crap, I'm gonna forget it now, aren't I? There's it's like they're like stereotypical like strained love scene where it's like things aren't working out between like it's after
Yeah.
Shane gets cut and it's a Rolling Stone song. I can't think what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I can't tell you the song.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not great with songs like I am with films. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And all three of those scenes do not seem out of place.
Yeah, but
the
to
music
your point,
works so well.
We remember those and we remember them as good because the music is timeless, not timely in that.
Yeah. And so there is a difference between timeless and timely. And this film has both. And I think that's very interesting, but it also at the same time really dates it.
So this has kind of been a podcast of rambled, jumbled thoughts all over the place, which kind of is reflected of the players in the movie. But I just glanced at my note sheet and probably the most, as you would say, the most fried fun fact I was able to learn researching this movie. You know the guy that plays the guy that's in prison and gets let out to come play? Dude's name is
Henry Ruggs the Third.
Close. His name is Michael Jace. And this was after the movie, but he was actually convicted of second-degree murder.
When? After the movie?
It was after the movie came out. It was his like ex-wife, I'm pretty sure. Got like 40 years in jail. But like
so Henry Ruggs and should be Deshaun Watson should start a team.
The Prison League. The
Prison League.
That'll be it'll be the Longest Yard.
the Longest Yard 3. Yeah. The documentary, the docu-series.
Coming to Max this spring.
Who's convicted of second?
That's
Hi,
insane.
crime junkies. This is Ashley Flowers. And today we have the second-degree murder. Wow. Yeah. So he was so good at playing the character.
He was just very method, apparently.
Yeah. Woo! Okay, anyway, yeah, that is
rest in
fried.
peace, whoever he murdered. But I'm like, that's wild.
Rest in peace to whoever he murdered. Great. Wow. Yeah, that is fried. I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Um anyway,
Have fun transitioning out of that one.
yeah, did you I still can't think of that song.
It's I know it's driving me.
Rainbows.
Blinded by Rainbows. That it is.
Yeah.
I was
Blinded by the light.
not
Rainbows.
that. Fun fact that was actually written by Bruce Springsteen, even though it's known as a Manfred Mann song.
So now with Blinded by the Light.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so now I know why you like that song. Okay. Man, you freaking love Bruce Springsteen. Anyway, man, this
The fact
podcast,
that
we almost
that
like need to redo this
Yeah.
whole podcast.
We don't have time.
No, we don't have time. And I kind of don't want to. I like how off the cuff this is. I'm sure the folks at home like how off the
Folks,
cuff.
if you ever thought this podcast was scripted at all, let me just say that we have zero script.
We have
at
zero
all.
script. I ironically will write scripts for podcasts, but not for this.
We don't even really like talk about what we're going to talk about. We just get on and talk about it usually.
Half the week, I don't know what movies next week. Like, yeah, it is 100% off the cuff. The purpose of this is to just share what our thoughts are. You know, our opening thoughts, and then our final thoughts after Rosebud and Thorn. Which, speaking of which, it is the time. Rosebud and Thorn. Jake, what are your Rosebud and Thorn? I can kind of guess at least one rose.
What's your guess?
Gene Hackman.
Yeah, 100%.
Duh. Absolute freaking duh. That dude is an OG. He's still alive. Could you imagine him coming back for one movie?
Oh my gosh.
Like, he hasn't acted since like 2003.
Yeah.
It's been like 20 years. Bring him back.
He's like 90
one last movie. Yeah. The only person I'd be able to do it, Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan can do whatever the hell he wants.
Honestly, after this summer, I mean, the man,
Oppenheimer.
Chris Nolan and Greta Gerwig own Hollywood right now.
That is true. That is true. Which doesn't say much because they're all still on strike. So it's like,
yeah. But anyways, yes, Gene Hackman gets one of my roses. No shocker here. Keanu Reeves also gets a rose.
Totally.
John Favreau.
Football.
John Favreau is going to get another rose. I mean, he is I'm gonna say he's the funniest character in this. Like the whole scene about Gene Hackman's like, Danny, I need you to get me the football. I'm gonna get you the football. I need the football. I'll get you the football. And then he goes out and gets the fumble and he brings it over to Hackman. I got you the football. You got me the football. I got you the football. Okay, go sit down now, Danny. I lose it every time. It is.
He's so out of pocket, man.
Wacky and wild. He forces the quarterback out of the pocket. He's a hell of a linebacker.
Yeah, and he's got that thing.
The neck roll. Thing? It's a neck roll.
Yeah. What is what? Yeah, because Tom Cruise had that too. What is it?
I can't remember.
What's the neck roll?
So it's basically.
That's some sushi.
No.
I'll take a neck roll, please.
It's it evolves into. Neck rolls are more old school, and then like in the early 2000s, actually he might wear a cowboy collar. It's basically the same thing. Cowboy collar is just actually made out of plastic instead of foam. But the whole idea,
this like, seems a little plastic.
The whole idea is it prevents you from getting like your head like whipped back, prevents you from getting whiplash, or it's supposed to help that. You see, because for some reason it's become like a linebacker thing. Like linebackers wear them, or at least they did in like the late 90s. Brian Bosworth had a neck roll when he played for Oklahoma. Talk about
Brian Urlacher? No.
He might.
Ray Lewis. I think Ray Lewis did.
I think Urlacher wore a cowboy collar, but I mean it was the
style.
Yeah, it was, and it was like. I don't know. It seemed to like mean like that's a tough mamma jamma.
And it works. He's very intimidating in this. Very
Yes.
intimidating. I'm like, he could murder so many people.
Yes.
Um,
But he
they
cracked
said he
me
was
up
a
in
cop. Was he actually a cop?
Jon Favreau?
Yeah,
I don't
not
think
Jon Favreau. I mean the character.
Oh yeah, he was on a SWAT team. He was a SWAT officer.
Yeah, but he went to jail. I feel like that
No, he didn't. He
disqualifies.
didn't go to jail.
They were all in the holding cell.
Well, okay, for one
Jail
night.
adjacent.
For one night.
Jake, if I'm in the holding cell for one night, my life would be over.
I
Okay.
know
Nobody would care except me.
I'm gonna
And
be
it
your
is my
one phone
life.
call. I know I'm gonna be your one phone call.
Jake, I'm in jail. They're gonna murder me. I'm too dainty for jail. I can't do it. I can't do it. Freaking Mission Impossible me out of here. Like that's I'd be like, could I have some spoons, please? Spoons? Unlimited. If I can have an unlimited amount of spoons and a Star Wars poster. And don't ask what's
Part
behind the
2.
star. Shawshank Part 2. Electric Boogaloo. So those are your roses.
Also I'm gonna say the edit. We just saw the moment of me rambling about how much I love the edit, and it reminds me of Star Wars. I still stand by that analysis, even if you think it's kind of out there. And then what's her name? Brooke Langton, who plays Annabelle.
Yeah.
I liked her. So sometimes I've been kind of like, the relationship doesn't make sense to me, but this rewatch, I was like, I'm digging it. I'm buying it. I bought into the relationship.
You bought into it?
Yeah. Yeah. So those are my roses. My bud, we've kind of alluded this all podcast long. It is like, it goes right up to the brink of being too cheesy. Like, as much as I love this movie, I recognize that, like, it finds the line of being too cheesy and stands right behind it. And like it's able to embrace its like nostalgia in a charming, like endearing way. That, but like it's just like, I don't know. I want to say it's like, it's one. If it was like one joke too far, or if it was like one bad early 2000s song too far, like it would have been over the edge.
I would posit, I would suggest that if Gene Hackman did not play any role in this and he wasn't the coach, it'd be too cheesy. Okay. I genuinely think that he brings it down to earth enough. And the fact sometimes this happens with specific actors, like if they are well respected enough, it's like Tom Cruise. If he were to do a comedy, right, he has a certain brand, not Scientology. He has a certain brand of film.
Yeah.
And you get a certain expectation from a Tom Cruise picture. So if you were to go and do like a flat out comedy, it would have a different feeling than if Tom Hanks were to do it. Like if it was the exact same script, everybody else was the same, except you switch out Cruise for Hanks. It would be a completely different film. It's the same kind of thing here. Gene Hackman is such a respected actor.
Yeah.
Who never took an acting class.
Sounds right.
He never took an acting class. He's such a respected actor that just his presence brought this movie down to earth enough that they could push the limits everywhere else.
Yeah. I see that. I agree with that. But still, that's gonna be my bud. Is like it's just teeters right on the edge there for me. And then my thorn, yes, I do have a thorn. Nobody wears a mouthpiece.
I noticed that.
And like, yes, I know, like in the NFL, you don't have to wear a mouthpiece. It's like your choice. Just
how many people chew gum? There are like especially in the NBA, there are a lot of people that chew gum during games, but there are people that chew gum in the NFL too.
And I mean, it's, in the same way that you don't have to wear knee pads. My brother always wanted to make it to the NFL because he hated wearing knee pads, and so he didn't want to. He wanted to have the option not to wear knee pads.
Interesting.
But it really bothers me because I'm like, someone has to have a mouthpiece. Like, someone has to be like, I want to protect my teeth. Like, my parents,
Understood.
like, well, one, it's like a rule in youth, like all through like
Right.
high school football, you have to wear a mouthpiece. But like, even in like off-season camps, like I can remember like my parents being like, "Yeah, you should wear your mouthpiece." I'm like, it's non like
Non-contact.
it's just like, well, it was like be like some contact. Like I can remember like one camp I did that was just like we just wore helmets, and like there was like the linemen, like we did like some very light contact, but my parents were like, you should still wear your mouthpiece. We paid a lot of money for braces and such on your
Did
teeth.
you? Okay, I have a vague memory of my dad boiling my mouthpiece. Is that a
Yeah,
thing?
that's how you fit it. Oh, this is bringing back memories here.
I
So
don't need to know all the boiling details. I just need to know if that is something that actually occurred or it was a dream.
it's real because the Cliff Notes version that softens the rubber, so that way when you bite into it when it's hot, it forms around like your specific teeth. You're essentially making a mold, and then yeah. So, but I mean, like mouthpieces don't even just like protect your teeth; like they're also been proven to like reduce concussions because like it like helps
Because
like
that's science.
it's there's something
I
with
don't
like
understand.
it like helps like
I don't know.
disperse like the force of like head to head contact. I don't
You know what else
understand
does?
what
Midichlorians.
what
Because that disperses the force. The more midichlorians you have. Anyway.
Rose
Um,
Thorn. What do you got?
yeah. My rose, I have a couple. Gene Hackman. I think, like I said, I think he's one of the greatest actors ever. I love his story. I have yet to see a movie where I don't like him. Even, and I'm not a huge Wes Anderson guy, and even the Royal Tenenbaums, 2001. I think he filmed it like right after this. He's in it, and I love him. I love him in it. I kind of like that movie. It's sus, but I kind of like it. Um, and he's even in Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah.
He and Gene Wilder are both in Bonnie and Clyde, which is wild. Anyway, don't make a joke about me saying Wilder and then Wild. Anyway, Keanu Reeves is another one. I He's not a great actor,
No.
but he's awesome.
This is like in his wheelhouse.
This is absolutely in his wheelhouse. This like he's quite good in this,
Yeah.
because he knows his limits, and or maybe he doesn't know the limits, but the casting director certainly does.
Yeah.
Um, so those are my two roses. Buds, I'm gonna have to say the soundtrack. Some of those, I mean, it really took me out of the film. What was not a fan of that. Um, some of the humor, I think, was a little. It seemed a little all over the place at
Yeah.
times. I kind of wanted a more, not necessarily concise story because it's kind of concise, but I think I wanted to see more rising action and resolution. Like I wanted to see more.
Mhm.
Right, we have a lot towards the climax. It's like the peak is pretty steep,
Yeah.
and we don't have as much. Um, I want more from the very beginning and the very end to kind of set up the characters.
Okay.
And then my thorn, honestly, maybe it's because I did not like last week's movie, but I really don't have a thorn. I thought this movie was really, really enjoyable, and very, very fun. The next thing we're going to talk about is who we think we are. And I think everybody knows who I think Jake is. Do you want me to go first?
Please do.
Okay. You are clearly Daniel Bateman. You love that character so much. I will be honest,
I back.
I didn't think he was funny. Like that kind of humor, like I did not, and I know you well enough. I've known you long enough to know that you would find him hilarious.
Mhm.
Like his kind of humor. That is not humor that I find funny. which I know might surprise you, but uh, like I did not think he was funny, but I knew you would think he was funny.
Yes. Yes.
So you are clearly
Yeah.
Bateman.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That is the correct choice. I
You
love it.
also kind of half saved Star Wars if you're John Favreau. So
Yes. What a guy. You are Keanu Reeves in
let's
this.
go. Yes, sir.
One, because I know how much you like Keanu Reeves, and two, the scene in practice when he first notices Annabelle and he like gets sacked because he keeps staring at her and like almost doesn't get the playoff. I don't know, that just
Oh, what?
you would be the player at practice that would get distracted by a cheerleader.
Yeah, I kind of did that. Okay, the whole fact that they were all strippers was low key incredibly out of pocket.
Yeah.
Like that whole scene
Okay.
where even the refs were looking at him, that was out of pocket.
That's gotta be illegal. She's shaking her ass. That girl slapped the other girl's ass.
It was so out of pocket, man. It was like not called for at all. And yeah, because the other people, I was like, oh, so the real comedy is going to be this squad of cheerleaders because they were wild.
Also,
But
can we just? This is something that dawned on me in this rewatch, and it never occurred to me ever before. Just because the players are on strike, like, are the cheerleaders are on strike too? Because like they're having like tryouts for some.
I
I don't know,
guess.
like if you're having like strippers.
But then why is Annabelle not on strike too?
I don't know, but you know what I mean. Like, why
Yeah.
would they have mid-season cheerleader tryouts? Like that
Exactly.
question dawned on me, and I'm like I get what it's supposed to do for the story, but I'm like, huh. Like it had never clicked to me until that point, until this rewatch.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that they walked out in solidarity, and then
Yeah.
Annabelle's like, "Well, I don't have to, and I like football, and somebody needs to run this thing,
Yeah.
and I want $50 a week. I want
$50
$50
whole dollars.
which I will say, I don't know if $50 is the right number, but that is accurate. That cheerleading is not full time.
Oh no.
I have a friend. That was a NFL cheerleader for a couple seasons, and she had a full time job. So like even my old scoutmaster, I don't know if he still does it. I think he does. He runs kind of some of the sound for the team. So like headsets and things like that. He runs it, and sometimes he'll go with the team, and he volunteers to do that.
Nice.
But also you volunteer to get on the freaking field. Let's go.
Yeah.
So it's always cool. I can go into a game and I'll look and be like, oh, there's Chuck. That my scoutmaster. Yeah. So that's my rosebud and thorn. And then we already talked about who I think you are. So now is the time where we talk about our final thoughts. Jake, what are your final thoughts on The Replacements?
Final thoughts. I love this movie. This rewatch made me realize how much I love it even more. I watched it with my roommate Tanner, and he enjoyed it. You enjoyed it. So I'm going to recommend it to all of you out there. If you just have any passing interest in football at all, like, you're going to enjoy this movie. Even, I would say, if you don't like football.
I think it's funny enough that even if you don't like football, you're going to like this movie. Yeah.
It's funny, but it still has some gravity provided by Gene Hackman and possibly Gene Hackman alone. And it has some heart to it, but it's really enjoyable. It's fun. It's light. And I really love it. And also
it's like a shandy.
Bear down.
It's like a shandy, right? Like if you want something light and fresh in the summer, right? So you want a shandy, which I just learned this summer serving at Flicks because we're a brewery. And people are like, can I have a shandy? I'm like, I don't know what that is. And so I had to look it up. I mean, I have to look up all the time different things. Like, what's a Hefeweizen? I was like, bless you. I don't know what a Hefeweizen is.
We had a thorough discussion on martinis the other day.
We did. And did you know that there is one type of, well, for the folks at home, because Jake was the one that told me this, there's a type of martini that is specifically created because of James Bond and the way he orders his martini. So it is called the Vesper or Vesperlind from Casino Royale. My final thoughts. I really enjoyed this movie too. I would highly recommend it. I think it is funny enough that even people that don't understand football will appreciate it, because obviously it's very clear you don't put stickum on your hands or smoke cigarettes. This whole movie is out of pocket. This movie should be named Out of Pocket,
hey,
the movie.
It's out of pocket, so maybe you should try scrambling.
Yeah, that
I
that
told
whole
that
thing.
to a quarterback one time. I told that to a quarterback.
What was also really funny is the scene where he goes, "All right, let's kick their ass," and then he just throws the ball in the guy's face. It bounces off, he catches it, and he like runs. Like it is just, it's like that wasn't in the playbook. Yeah. So obviously these are some rambling thoughts from both of us today, but I think that symbolizes, especially when that happens, it's just a really enjoyable film. And sometimes, especially with comedies, it doesn't need to be deep. It doesn't need to have incredible cinematography, because what is remembered from a comedy is the comedy itself. If the movie makes you laugh, it's probably going to have a positive rating by it for you, at least. Not always the case, but especially that's why comedies are so subjective, especially on something like Rotten Tomatoes. Because, like I said, Jake finds Jon Favreau's character really, really funny. I didn't find him funny, but I literally I watched him and I saw Jake. I was like, literally, Jake is gonna loves this character. I know he does. And Jake watched Keanu Reeves and was like, I know Ben's gonna love this character because he loves Keanu Reeves, and how Keanu Reeves just acts is just awesome. More like Keanu Rizzler, because this dude somehow pulled it off. With the cheerleader. I mean, he's got so much charisma. That's what I think of. Charisma Rizzler instead of Keanu Reeves. There you go. But the question is for you folks at home. Have you seen The Replacements? Not a lot of people have. What are your thoughts? What are your rosebud and thorn? Let us know everything in the comments down below. Make sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button, ringing that bell to get all notifications on upcoming content. We are right smack in the middle of our Football in the Fall series. So make sure to head back next week. We're going to have another football movie for you then. Make sure to follow us on social media. Follow Jake and myself, also the Cinefile. I actually, for the first time, posted a thread. I know, I posted it on Ahsoka episode 4, Spectacular Star Wars. I heard next episode dropping on Tuesday at 9 p.m. So actually yesterday is going to be balls to the wall. So make sure to check out my threads. I will post my thoughts on episode 5, and Jake is active on Twitter. So with all that out of the way, remember that sometimes the players that don't make the playoffs, or the players that don't play in the playoffs, still experience greatness. For Jake Biller, I'm Ben Sparrow. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you back here next week. And cut.